It's Wednesday. It's 7 o'clock. So you know what time it is. It's time for the Black Fact. It's time for us to get it in, have these discussions, have this dialogue, and talk about all things wrong with the world. Big Nate Hampton is in the building right on time, my man. It's good to see you. Thank you for checking in on a brother. We got a lot to talk about tonight. Look, y'all. We got a lot to talk about tonight. It's going to be... this is going to be one of those and I mean, you got probably longer shows. It's going to go longer than an hour. And I mean, you got to think about it. Since I'm consolidating 3 nights a week into the one, because this is a lot of work, we're going to have a longer discussion. So let me start by welcoming my Oh So Smooth radio family in the building. My man Shorty Smooth and them over there at the Oh So Smooth headquarters, handling the business. We're doing this simulcast on this Wednesday evening. So welcome all my Oh So Smooth radio people. Just know that at the end of the hour, I will be cutting you guys off, of course, you know, because we have scheduling over there. At structure, if you will. Something I'm not used to, but we're going to work it out. We will, you can feel free to continue. Uh-oh, I'm sorry, y'all. Oops. You can feel free to continue following the show. Thank you, Lisa Juarez. I appreciate you shouting that out to me. I have to keep up with these little technical things. It's a trip running this whole situation by my daggone self. But I'm going to get it done. Anyway, at the end of the hour, my Oh So Smooth radio crowd, I'm going to be cutting you loose. And everyone else, just keep on hanging with me, and we're going to keep on having this discussion. Because today, you know, I started out, and I'm just being, you know, real candid, right? I started out wanting to discuss one thing, and it ended up taking me down a rabbit hole. Y'all know how that go. We always get these rabbit holes, and we end up not necessarily switching subjects, but we just go down a path on one subject that takes us into the abyss, if you will. So... So check it out, y'all. You know, usually when I was doing the show 3 nights a week, it's because stuff was constantly on my mind. You know, things keep coming up, and, you know, the subject matter is constantly changing. History is consistently being made. So, you know, you kind of got to stay on top of these things. So with that being said, it makes me have to bring a lot more information into this one episode, but that's cool. I don't mind doing it, as long as you don't mind hanging with me and checking it out. But I want you to stay with me on this stuff, because it's leading into a direction. I see you, Riri. Thank you for checking in. Miss Lisa Juarez and Miss Poppy Forbes is in the building. I want to first start by saying that the black community, we absolutely are more than the limitations that are set for us by others. And sometimes others need to get a real clear understanding about who we are, why we are, what we are, and where we are going, where we belong and where we're going. But I know that's a struggle for some people, because they haven't made up in their mind that black folks are of a particular breed, particular behaviors, and all of that kind of stuff. You know, the stereotypes, the stuff they see on TV, and they believe the hype. Never having actually taken the time to break bread, get to know, or speak with someone from other communities in order to find out how the other half actually lives. Phyllis Harris is in the building. I see you, Miss Phyllis. So check this out, y'all, right off the top. I don't know if anybody, y'all remember, recently they put legislation in place down in Florida that if protesters were in the street and people just accidentally happened to roll over or run over these people, that they would probably not be charged. Well, a woman in North Carolina, unfortunately, in Elizabeth City, where Mr. Andrew Brown had been murdered by police, she was arrested on Monday after allegedly striking protesters marching against the police killing of Andrew Brown. 41-year-old Lisa Michelle O'Quinn was charged with 2 felony counts of assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill, 1 count of careless and reckless driving, and 1 count of unsafe movement. I say good to all of those things. Police are also considering whether to bring hate crime charges against her. And she was being held at the Albemarle District Jail on a $40,000 bond, which she, of course, posted, and she's out now. They'll probably martyr her like they do all of the white folks who take a stand against black life. And they're talking about charging her with a hate crime, and I believe they should. I think that she did it deliberately. I think that the freedoms that some individuals feel these days about the dehumanization of others, particularly black folks, causes these attitudes to flourish in this way. And it's not that they don't have this stuff beneath the surface. You know, they're not, all of these ideas and thoughts are lingering already. But when you have people fueling the flames, the Donald Trumps of the world and the Donald Trump supporters and those who are strong in white supremacy, of course, they think that these things are perfectly all right. And they don't devalue human life, let alone black life, enough to care that they're going to run someone over because they don't like the idea of people of color protesting, which I'm going to get on that subject after a while too. It just is, it's amazing to me how much that infuriates certain groups of white folks. So right quick, the Republicans in the Senate are attempting to block the January 6th commission that they want to put in place, the police reform bill, and the infrastructure bill. And blocking that police reform bill, that's a major blow. Well, all of these actually affect us tremendously, but that police reform bill, you know, what I find amazing is that there are a group of people who have just finally decided they're going to do nothing, and these are the Republicans in the Senate. They intend to do absolutely nothing. They're not going to let anything pass. They're not going to do the same thing they did when Barack Obama was in office. Same thing they did. I mean, they did a lot of this when Trump was in office. And the fact is, they're not going to do anything, and they're not going to let anybody else do anything. And it's like high time we stop being held hostage. You know, that's getting old. Anyway, I find it interesting how now all of a sudden with the infrastructure bill, they're complaining about the money, but they never said a word about any money that Donald Trump spent. And he spent trillions, raised the deficit by, I believe it was double, and not one word was spoken. I know y'all heard me say it on this show before. For those of you who follow the show on a regular, I know you heard me say it before. I noticed that we haven't had any discussions about a budget. We haven't heard any discussions about spending the whole time Trump was in office, but now all of a sudden they're concerned about the money. All right. Anyway, that brings me to this here, y'all. The other day, I was thinking about Bugs Bunny. The topic came up around some other people of things like, I don't even remember how it came up, to be honest. Well, anyway, they were talking about the way Bugs Bunny mocked other characters. And there was this one thing that kind of stuck out to me, and it always has in all of these years of me watching. I used to be a huge Bugs Bunny fan. Anyway, he used to say, like, what a moron, or what a maroon. He had a list of names he would call a person. And it occurred to me, a maroon. What exactly did he mean when he called a person a maroon? Was he mispronouncing moron? Because someone did mention that to me, and I said, no, that's not what his intent was. And I said, in fact, if you listen to the dialogue of Bugs Bunny, I know y'all think I'm crazy, we talking about Bugs, but if you listen to the dialogue of Bugs Bunny, you'll understand he was very well spoken and very good at impersonations as well. Anyway, he would say, "What a maroon." So that prompted me to finally, after 55 years of life, look up what a maroon was. Because why was he calling somebody a maroon? Well, here's what I found. Maroons are actually descendants of Africans in the Americas who formed settlements away from slavery. Dig that. They often mixed with indigenous people, eventually evolving into a separate Creole culture, such as the Garfo. I can't pronounce it. Y'all forgive me. And the Nazcagos. In other words, Lisa Juarez, thank you so very much. You're absolutely correct. These were runaway slaves. These were people who wanted freedom. But the fact that Bugs Bunny thought that using that term, maroon, as a derogatory way to describe someone was a little disturbing. And then I got to thinking about all of the other racist stuff that came up on Bugs Bunny cartoons. Many of the Merry Melodies and the other cartoons that came out during that time where you had characters in blackface, if you will. You had the Magpies and several other things that came up in these cartoons that were racist. So, of course, this would fit right in. Anyway, the Maroons were escaped slaves who fled from Spanish-owned plantations because, you know, between the Spaniards and the Brits, all of this stuff down here that had been colonized, they were part of it. Now, the British finally took the Caribbean away from the Spanish in 1655. Now, the word maroon comes from the Spanish word cimarron, which meant mountaineers. So these people ran into the mountains and created their own settlements, their own colonies, their own way of living. I think that was a pretty good idea. Anyway, they basically were a threat to the institution of slavery. Large groups of them escaped to geographically secluded regions to form runaway slave communities. I think that was pretty brilliant of them, actually. But it finally set my mind not necessarily to rest, but informed me of exactly what Bugs Bunny was trying to get at when he said, "What a maroon." Huh, ain't that something? Lisa Juarez says, "Wow, I never knew this." Lisa Juarez, this is exactly why I do this. Because when things come across, because we need perspective, and that's what the Black Factor is all about, perspective. And we have to put things in a way that shines a light in areas that we may not have been necessarily looking at in the past and give us an opportunity to examine the realities and the truth for what they really are under a completely transparent and shining light. Now, we're going to talk about, not completely talk about, but we're going to talk about social behaviors, animal social behaviors, actually. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because, again, another thought I had. The question became, are human beings animals? Do we operate in our capacity as humans using our brains only as a way to navigate the planet? Or do we use our animal instincts oftentimes to navigate our movements? Now, see, the thing is this. A lot of people, and we're not going to get into a religious conversation because that's something, y'all know I don't like to do. But a lot of people like to say, well, we're not animals. We have the ability to think and do and all this kind of stuff. Well, guess what? So do animals. And I think that the arrogance of human beings has a tendency to not give animals the credit that they are due. Their means of communication is not our means of communication. It doesn't mean that they communicate any less. Maybe they don't have the hands or the ability to do the things that we find interesting, but let's face it, they have their own world and they operate within that world in their capacity. Any other species would. And of course, we've been led to believe, particularly from the Bible, that we have dominion over all things on this planet. I apologize, but I beg to differ. Now, I dare you to go show a tiger in the jungle about your dominion with no gun. See, you only got dominion when you have the power to shut them down. And I guarantee you, if you run your ass out there in front of a herd of tigers, when you don't have a gun, in fact, you can have a gun, and if it's enough of them, you're not going to survive it. So who's the one with the real power? Who's got the real dominion? And they're operating in the capacity that they're familiar with. Human beings only operate in the capacity that we're familiar with. It doesn't mean that we are that much smarter than any other or, any of those other things. Because in their world, they have the smarter ones and the smartest. If you judge a fish by its ability to walk, then of course you're going to think the fish is an idiot. But I'd like to see those who can walk attempt to go and do what the fish does. See my point? Don't go there. You're going to lose. Fish is going to swim circles around you. So anyway, the fact is this. After having done the homework and looked it up, the bottom line is we are animals. And Dana Brock says, thus the term herd immunity is upon us. Absolutely. Thank you for pointing that out. You are absolutely correct. There's a reason why they use that term. So animal social behaviors include interactions that occur between two or more individual animals, usually the same species. Now, let's keep in mind, yes, human beings are in the animal family. If by definition, you have vertebrate, invertebrate, and I can't think of the third one. But yes, we are considered vertebrate. Okay, now, here's the thing. Most animals operate within their own species, right? And they don't separate from one another because of the color of their fur or because one of them looks a little funny. Whatever the case may be. They operate within their species, period. Human beings who are supposed to be smarter than animals can't. They can't not separate themselves into groups and packs based on superficial criteria. So who's smartest? Are they smarter for understanding the ability to survive as a group? Or are we smarter by separating ourselves and trying to survive without others who are just like us? I beg to differ on who's the smartest. Now, they form simple connections, cooperate in sexual or parental behaviors, engage in disputes over territory. Sounds like us to me. So all of that sounds just like human beings, animals. They fight over territory and access to mates, or to simply communicate with one another. All of that sounds very human. But we like to try and separate ourselves to think that we're better. When the fact is, again, that's very questionable. But that's the arrogance of man, which is one of the reasons why man is struggling so hard, so bad right now in society, which is why we're right now going through, like Dana Brock said, herd immunity. Exactly. And the fact is, we do the exact same things. We communicate in sexual behaviors, parental behaviors, and we, of course, dispute over property all the time. People are constantly fighting over money, property, fighting for jobs, competition. Animals fight for competition. In fact, animals are smart enough. Let's take a female lion. She's not going to let herself be mated with the weak lion in the herd, in the pack, in the pride. She wants the strongest lion. But human beings pick the women will pick some of the weakest men and procreate with them. Female lion ain't about to do that. She ain't giving it up to no weakling. But we got women out here who's supposed to be smarter than animals who can't figure that out. Imagine that. So, here's the deal on white society on a macro scale. They have anger and aggression, just like animals, and we've witnessed it time and time again throughout the history of what is known as America, particularly whenever black people tend to become self-sufficient or put themselves in a more positive position, are happy with themselves. That's just too much. That's too much. Riri says, there are similarities, but we are still different from four-legged animals. Riri, I challenge you to give me a list of those things without bringing religion into it at all. I'll wait. In fact, please list them here so we can all take part in that, so we can have that discussion. Their anger and aggression becomes obvious whenever a person, non-white, appears to want anything that they have. There's that territorial protection that we just talked about in the animal kingdom. They become territorial. They become competitive. They don't like it when they believe you have an opportunity to have what they had. And in fact, no matter how hard you work for it, they will work very hard to prove to you that you don't deserve it, regardless of your skill and ability. And I'm not talking about all white folks. Don't misunderstand me. But we are living under a systemic society that has kept others in this country in a poverty scenario. The fact is, there are things that have taken place over the last 50 to 75 to 150 years that have deliberately contributed directly to the poverty levels, especially in the black community. Here's the truth. And I can't even count all of these. We have had multiple massacres in black communities throughout this country. Chicago, Detroit, New York, Washington, Springfield, East St. Louis, Philadelphia, Memphis, Wilmington, Elaine, Tulsa, Vicksburg, Clinton, Atlanta, Charleston, Eufaula, Camilla, Oki, that's in Florida, Rosewood, St. Bernard Parish, New Orleans, Thibodaux, Louisiana, Opelousas, Louisiana, Colfax, Louisiana, Sikkim, Louisiana, and Vicksburg, Mississippi. Now, these are the ones that I'm just listing right here off the top. Every time black society has taken it upon themselves to not be dependent or sufficient on white life, no assimilation, just black people doing what they do, minding their own business. White folks have found an excuse, a reason to justify coming in and destroying everything these people had because of their anger of black people attempting to unify. Justin Jordan says, you know what? It's like gorillas listening to a bird because the birds can fly. The gorillas believe in the birds and listen to what the birds tell them because they can fly. We are just like that. Justin Jordan, absolutely. That is a fantastic comment. You're absolutely correct. And that is the problem, because everybody has a tendency to watch what something or someone else is doing and think that they are supposed to be doing. You're not cut out for that. Stay in your lane, do what you do, live your existence, which is what black folks have tried to do for the last 150 years, ever since the end of slavery, but have been cut off at the knees at every turn. And of course, moving forward, that is a cutoff of generational wealth, legacy building, and historical markers in regard to family ties. All of these things removed. Riri says, humans have the ability to think, analyze, write down linguistics, put into motion, and change for better. For example, driving. Riri, I contend that animals also have the ability to think, analyze. They don't need to write anything down. They have their own language. And they put things into motion. You ever watched a group of animals hunt? You can't tell me they're not thinking and being strategic about that. That's not just some kind of wild banter that they do. I mean, I understand what your point is, but with me, it's going to be a struggle for you to find anything that we are capable of that is not possible to put into context that animals also do. Just because we don't understand their means of communication does not mean that they don't communicate. They do. Riri, why would they need to drive? You know how far I could ride a horse? A horse can go across country. Take him a little while, but he can get there. What's the difference? He can still get to a destination without you, me, or a car. Where do they need to go? And if you think about it, we didn't even need cars 100 years ago, 100 and some years ago. See, I understand where you're going, but you got to put it in perspective. Now, anytime black folks have attempted to, she said horses hurt. No, they don't. To accomplish anything, here's the problem. Whenever they destroy our communities throughout the history of this country and the growth of this country, the problem is when they destroy everything that we have, it makes it impossible for us to play on our own playing field. It makes it impossible for us to operate within our own means with our own people, which they, of course, have separated themselves from us. So why do you care what goes on in the black community? Well, they turn around and destroy the black community, which then made us self-sufficient upon them, which I guess that's what they wanted. It's kind of like a man who beats up his girlfriend, walks out the door, and basically says, you nobody else wants you. You need me. You can't do nothing without me. And beats her ass and throw her out the house. You need me. You ain't shit without me. That's basically what they're trying to tell us, or what they have tried to tell us throughout history. Justin Jordan says, why we don't have black male talk shows? Because, Jordan, let me tell you, one of the reasons for that is that if you pay attention to television, and this is no slight against anyone of the LGBTQ community, but just understand that the black male image has been greatly effeminized over the last 30, 40, 50 years. Well, I say 50 years. And they're less threatening. If you have a male talk show that does not involve a constant parade of gay males, it will not survive. It will not survive because it is a threat to society. The idea of mainstream media giving a damn about how black men feel or what they think is not going to sell on television for a multitude of reasons. I can give you a list on that one. Don't get it twisted. I think it would be a fantastic idea. In fact, I intend in the next few months, that's why I'm glad this COVID thing is, I guess, trying to wind down. But what I'm looking forward to is a summit that I'm going to host with several black men, and we're going to talk about issues in the black community and with men in general of color, and the things that we have to deal with. And I think that's going to be a very powerful, powerful event. So y'all stay tuned for that. It's coming. But anyway, back to the subject at hand. When they force us to become dependent upon them, which is the problem. And I mean, think about it. How many times have we tried to build our own stadium, our own playing field, and the stadium has been torn down? So now we got to find somewhere else to play, which means we have to play in their arena because ours has been destroyed by them. And of course, as time goes on, we fall into or blend into the fabric of America, only to be held without resources, with limitations on the job and otherwise, paid less. The list goes on. It's almost like white society kind of reminds me of that one girl from the neighborhood, the cute one. And she keep a whole bunch of dumb, ugly girls around her all the time. So she can always be top dog. She don't want to be around no other cute girls because if she is, she's going to lose. It's kind of like in parts of white society, the reason for their need to keep black people underfoot is because if they actually have to compete, if they actually have to tell the truth, they know the competition is going to be real, real stiff. They don't want that. So that's why it's necessary to make sure that they don't have to compete. They can just say, oh, you're not good enough, and push you aside and say, oh, he's black. He doesn't know anything. It's a black guy. They have a low IQ. And move on from there. And because we've lived in a society that has promoted and accepted and pushed those ideas for centuries, it's a very easy sell. Very easy sell. The deal is this. It's the same thing with the school system. If the establishment, the systemic racist establishment, and we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that ism. We're going to get into that in a minute. That establishment intends, especially in the beginning through the school system, to keep us ignorant, keep us with less knowledge, and therefore keep us broke, which allows them to have a second-class citizenship within America that allows them to continue promoting their so-called superiority. Now, it makes them feel like, we got one up on them. We're going to stay on top of them. But they can only do this in America to black people. Why? Why do I say that? Well, because every other race, group of people in this country have mother countries. They have somewhere to return. They have a lineage that they are connected to, a place that their origins are from. Black people in America, and I'm saying this as a black American, not as what people like to refer to as African American. And you have to be very careful with that term because, in fact, there are white Africans that have moved to America and call themselves African American and take advantage of the benefits of, what used to be benefits of being African American. The deal is that if you have Irish roots, you have a mother country. You can trace back your grandmother's grandfathers. You can go look at the census and all of that. Black folks can't do that. In fact, a real point of contention in America is that during the census in the 17, 18, and 1900s, there were times where indigenous individuals who were on this continent long before Christopher Columbus, who claimed with the lie that he discovered the Americas. A lot of the indigenous had also been caught up in the fray and scooped up in the middle of this. In fact, there were people of color already on this continent. And in fact, I'm going to do a show about that one of these days. And in fact, matter of fact, I'm going to have Sister X to talk about that on the show because that's her area of expertise. And in fact, being caught up in the sweep of it all, we are more connected to the indigenous of this continent than we understand or are clear about. So that's one of the things that a lot of, because we get so caught up in the motherland thing and the mother Africa and all this type of thing. Africa, let's get this one thing clear. Africa is the very seat, the very bed of humanity. So yes, everybody comes from there, period. But the fact is, when we start getting into, and we ain't gonna talk about the ancient history, we're talking about going back thousands and thousands and millions of years. We're gonna talk about in the last couple of 100 years where the black people who had been imported from those places during the Middle Passage and the slave trade, be clear that all of them or all of us are not necessarily a part of that. Now, I said all of that to say this. Black people in America have had to create the culture that we understand as Black Americans. The funny thing about Black Americans is that everybody wants to be us. They want our rhythm, but they don't want our blues. They've co-opted every single thing that we have ever done, created, or put forth and capitalized off of it. Like rap music, for example, like rock and roll, the blues. Now that's just on the music side. I could go on all day about the inventions and all the other things that were created. But I ain't gonna do that. Now, the thing is this, even when we have fought for this country, we still end up being second-class citizens after the battle. These battles, you know, they always, oh, black people are Americans, y'all Americans. You're all Americans while the fight is going on, but the minute the fight is over, then you're a nigga again. As soon as you get back stateside, because all the wars have been fought, the majority of the wars have been fought except for the Civil War, the Spanish-American War, and the Revolutionary War. All the other wars that we've ever fought have been in foreign countries. So when you get back, just remember, boy, stay in your place. That's the thanks that we get for being the factor, the black factor, in America becoming what it has become. But then they like to sweep all of that under the rug. Because check this out. I had a thought the other day, y'all, and I'm going to just tell you, I'm thinking about, and I say these things because I don't really care. If somebody else did this, it would be okay by me, but I'm going to do this. Sometimes when I put ideas out, I'm hoping that maybe somebody will snatch them and go do their thing with it, because I can't do everything. I'm going to be honest with y'all. I am a jack of so many trades. I'm not going to say I'm not a master of none, because I am somewhat of a master at a few. Fact is, I can't do everything. I got so many irons in the fire, but here's the deal. I want to write a textbook. I want to write an American history textbook that have all the information in it, the real information, the truth, not the lies they've been selling us in grade schools. Now, it probably won't make it into the curriculum because they don't want that kind of truth exposed. But I'm going to write it anyway because I think that is a necessity. And I hope that we have some institutions in America that are looking for excellence in the black community that would pick up a booklet like that and use it to educate our children, because like Malcolm X said, only a fool allows his enemy to educate his children. And we need to educate our children to the facts and the truth. Now, I'm going to show y'all something. See this right here? That's my next book. Might be 2 books. That's a lot of stuff. Anyway, I want to put all of that information into a consolidated book, textbook for our youth that will provide the facts, the truth, the real reasons for why we're where we are. I have a thought. I heard somebody say this the other day, and it made me wonder, and I've been thinking about this. They said America today is what Germany would look like if the Nazis had won, complete with Hitler's SS police force. Now, that got me to thinking. Is that true? Could that be real? Would the way people of color are treated in this country, are we the Jews of Nazi Germany? It make you think, right? Like animals, men are driven by greed, revenge. Riri, you said humans and human beings and animals are different. Okay, I wonder if animals feel revenge. I would say that would probably be a difference because they may not. I don't know though. I think I have seen some animals that knew the difference. Greed, want more than the next guy. It's mine. Or roll up and snatch another animal's food. I've seen that happen. But what makes me wonder, I really wonder about this. How much has black society assimilated to white behavior? And when I say white behavior, I mean, for example, black people are always labeled as the animals, as the threat to anybody. If we're walking down the street at the wrong time of night, then we're considered suspicious and we're a threat. And the police are called and we got to call for a suspicious person. Not doing a damn thing but minding your business, but you're suspicious. But I wonder, have we assimilated to the social ideas and the culture of those around us and become more violent, more careless? When I say careless, I mean we care less. Have we become more competitive based on this capitalistic society? Well, 2 things seem to run parallel in politics. There have been no changes in the gun rights laws. There have been no changes in the laws to keep black folks safe. Now, the LGBTQ community, they got their legislation. Like, yes, can't touch us. They're going to get you. And your Asians, Joe Biden just signed the legislation protecting Asians, the Asian and Pacific Islanders, and where's ours? They've been fighting to get a anti-lynching bill passed for the last 75 years or more. No, more. Almost 100 years. And it has yet to pass the House and the Senate. Why is that? Why do you suppose black people can't get the same protections as everybody else? I guess for the same reason black people can't get reparations for all of the atrocities committed against black folks. I wonder to myself sometimes, is this done out of somewhat of out of anger? Or is there some type of hidden agenda we don't know about? I'm just throwing that out there. I know that I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Y'all know that, so I don't know. Y'all do realize there was a mass shooting this morning, right? And there have been mass shootings across America all year long. Since January 1st up to April 30th, there have been 178 mass shootings, 232 as of today. And today's shooting was the 16th since last Friday. 16 mass shootings since last Friday. Now, here's what I find interesting about this. I mean, it's interesting, to be honest, but have you noticed how the media and other folks love to focus on Chicago and talk about black on black crime and how black people are killing each other? Even black people do it. That's part of their assimilation to white society and to believing that what white people say is so right. Because if you let the word black on black, the words black on black crime come out your mouth, you dead sleep because you don't understand what's going on. Yet this guy goes into this place in San Jose, California, place I've been to many, many times, shoots up the joint, then kills himself. 8 dead. And then he shot himself. Others are injured and potentially about to die. As we speak, there's a crime scene happening out there. Yet, we talk about, you hear people all the time, oh, Chicago, the violence, oh my God, what are they going to do about Chicago? But we got a national problem. Excuse me. People are flipping out and shooting up places and killing a whole bunch of people. But I don't hear that same mantra going on about these mass shootings. Why? Why aren't we hearing, why is there not the same outrage about mass shootings as particular people who want to politicize what's happening in Chicago? Why aren't they talking about this? I'll tell you why. Because most mass shooters, 98% of them are white. And rather than being considered criminals, they're considered mentally ill, mentally unstable, developmentally challenged, and the list goes on. Why is this? There's a little thing called paired associate learning. We talked about this some time ago. Paired associate learning dictates that when you have an association, you take an individual, a visual of somebody or a thought, and then you attach a behavior to it in your mind, then every time you see, part of your senses, every time you see this individual or one who looks like him, your paired associate learning is going to attach the idea to that person. So now you have, your learning mechanism is teaching you, and this is something that starts from a very young age, is teaching you that those people who look like that behave this way. Paired associate learning. Now, when you have to, and I'm going somewhere with this paired associate learning too, because we keep hearing this phrase come out of the media and these departments, these police departments, and they keep saying retrain. They're going to be retrained. There's no such thing as being retrained for your bigotry. You cannot retrain hatred. You cannot retrain racism. So, Dylan Roof, y'all remember him? This is the guy who shot up Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston, South Carolina, who is now 27. And he did confess to murdering the 9 people in that congregation during a Wednesday prayer service. He says now that he doesn't want to die, because y'all know he's sitting on death row. His time is coming close. He say he doesn't want to die. And I'm thinking, yeah, now you figured out that punishment for that life is life. You're gonna lose bad, bruh. Okay. Now, apparently at one point he had written a letter that stated that he had no remorse for the people that he killed. And his lawyer is now claiming what else? Mental illness, developmental. Come on, bro. Really? You were smart enough to holler about being racist and a white supremacist and all this other stuff. You were smart enough for that, but you wasn't smart enough to figure out you shouldn't kill people just because of the color of their skin. I remember them saying that he is a self-proclaimed white supremacist, and he was hoping to cause a civil war. Well, guess what, Mr. Roof? It didn't work. And I guess you figured out that your like-minded brethren don't have your back. Or maybe they do inside them jail cells. Whoop, wait a minute. So, this is where I have an issue with these mass shootings. And this goes back to what I was just saying about the reasons why the media focus on stuff like Chicago, where a person gets shot here, and they talk about it every week. It was 17 shootings in Chicago this weekend. So I believe it was 16 this weekend. But guess what? There were 16 mass shootings across America since Friday. What's the difference? In fact, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the mass shootings are worse than any crime in Chicago. And if you actually go and pull up the crime numbers and the shootings in other cities, you'll find that they're actually very comparable. I've done it because I was wondering to myself, are people in Chicago really going that nuts? Are they really just out here and I looked at other cities, and actually Chicago isn't even in the top, isn't even number one. But this is the way the narrative is written, the way the narrative was put out there. But here's the problem that I'm having. Every time a mass shooter shoots up a bunch of people, kills a bunch of folks, and then kills themselves, because of course you can't get any information. This particular shooter in San Jose, California today, I found this to be very interesting. They don't have a motive. Apparently he was a former employee of the rail yard or whatever it was. But what I found very interesting was before he went there, set his house on fire. And then he went to go kill a bunch of people. In other words, you're not going to run up in my spot and be hunting down information and trying to find anything, no electronic devices, no paper. He burned it all down, and it was burnt up real good. So, on the one hand, that's pretty smart of him, I guess. I don't know. I've never seen that done, but I believe that's going to be something that we will see in the future, because there will be many more mass shootings. I mean, again, it was 16 since Friday. Today is Wednesday. No, that was 16 from Friday to Monday, I believe it was, Monday or Tuesday. Today is Wednesday. But here's my problem. And this it annoys me every time I hear it. One of the dumbest things about the aftermath of all mass shootings, the very first thing they want to know, where'd the gun come from? How did he get them guns? At this point, who gives a damn? These people are dead. You are not about to bring them back. You're not about to change what happened. They're dead. What difference does it make where the damn gun came from? And the reason I ask that question is because we all know it doesn't matter. They're not going to do a damn thing about where it came from. Let's keep it 100. Stop with the hype. Stop trying to make like they're concerned about where the gun came from. Because most of these guys we're finding out, have found out, bought their guns legally. They weren't on anybody's radar. They weren't, people that was, walking around making threats. These were people who bought guns, had them legally one day and snapped. And decided that it was over for them. They was going to take a bunch of people with them. What difference does it make where the gun came from? Even if, let's say the gun was obtained illegally. Let's say it was stolen out of somebody's car. Let's say he built the damn gun. Let's say somebody gave him the gun. Still not going to bring those people back. Still not going to change what happened. Still not going to change the law. Why? Because they're not going to change any gun laws in America. Period. Period. Full stop. What difference does it make? That's all I'm saying. What difference does it make? It doesn't. Lisa Juarez says, here's my thing. If we don't have social media allowing it to be viewed by millions on all this hate crimes or shootings or Karens, would this still be happening? Lisa, that's an interesting question, and it does warrant investigation. However, I am going to discuss something just like that in just a minute. I'm getting up to that. Now, the people with power to make the changes aren't. Doesn't matter where the gun came from. The laws are not going to be touched. And we all know that in America, there are enough guns, literally, so that every one person in this country could probably have between 2 or 3, kids included. That's how many guns we have in America. If another country even thought about trying to invade America, do you understand the hell they would pay? Even when we as a country have invaded other countries, and we have under false pretenses, and people who actually were from the country were a part of those fighting forces, like in Vietnam, for example, they all had guns. And that's why we didn't win Vietnam. That's one of the reasons why. If somebody came to this country, you got so many gung-ho gun fanatics, it wouldn't last 10 minutes. I believe that the questions about about the origins of the guns are nothing more than a distraction. A talking point that allows us to move on to the next mass shooting. Because even though they ask the question, they never tell you where they came from. They never give you that information. And then and when they do, they'll say, oh, they bought it legally, which is what most of them have done. But in the end, it's not up to the people in the newsroom. It's not up to the people, except for the lawmakers in this country, to secure our safety. And they won't do that. They just won't. Even when it happens to them. Remember when those congressmen got shot on a baseball field a few years ago? When that other congresswoman got shot out there in Arizona? They're not going to do it. Listen, if their own can get shot up and they're not going to change the law, you know doggone well we ain't got a snowball chance in hell of getting it changed for the everyday citizen. A lot of things have changed in the last 50 years, y'all. One of those things is that you can no longer shame people. Because originally, on this show, I wanted to talk about things that have changed socially over the last 50 years. Because this plays into where we are now. People are not as religious as they once were. I remember when people defined others by what church they went to. And if they went to church, on Sundays and that kind of thing. Back when we had a certain level of structure in our families. People are not shamed anymore into anything or out of anything. It used to be you didn't want to embarrass your family, or you didn't want to, appear to be out of pocket, that kind of thing. No more of that. The legalization of marijuana, y'all, that's a change that we've seen in the last actually few years. Interracial marriages are more prevalent than they once were. Let's keep in mind those were against the law at one time. And, of course, that was to affect black folks because, they weren't going to lock no white woman up or no white man. They was going to lock up the other. Premarital sex. People are cool, have been with that for actually a very long time. But now it's just become more acceptable. It's in the mainstream. It's no big deal. It is what it is. We did it. Boom, done. and people will still get right up on, go to church on Sunday after they done screwed all night on Saturday, and like nothing happened. But that's just one more of those things. It goes back into the religious attachments. Family structure is not the same as it used to be for the most part. We now accept people of all genders and those who identify as other genders. Now, these are just things that have changed in the last, 30, 40, 50 years. Now, funny thing, and this is something me and a friend of mine were talking about the other day, we don't have home phones anymore. Most people don't. Most people don't even have a home phone. I've refused, even when cell phones kind of first got popular and were really kind of starting out, I said, no, I still got to have a home phone, period. I got to have it. Now I don't care nothing about a home phone. I got 2 cell phones, and that's too damn much. But that was something that, we didn't have. Now everybody has a cell phone. We have our interactions now mostly through social media. A lot of people nowadays don't even meet in public like we used to. I mean, that was why we wanted to go out back in the day. It was like, got to hit the streets. You wanted to hit the street because, you want to be around people. You want to interact with people. Now, all you got to do is pick up your damn smartphone or fire up your computer. The televisions didn't have 90,000 channels back then. We had maybe 3 or 4, and they went off around midnight. That's just one more of those things that have changed. I mean, literally, if you've got a cell phone, and it's got to be a smartphone. I mean, I think some people still do have a couple of flip phones, but I mean, let's keep it, let's keep it real, y'all. With a cell phone today, understand that you literally have a computer in your pocket. You got a calculator, your phone, your camera, video camera, photo album, a watch, voice recorder, a weather service, encyclopedia. There's a long list. You got a library. You got surveillance, because now everybody got them Ring doorbells. They come up on their phone. You got a radio, a record player, a bank, post office, a calendar, a scheduler, alarm clock, a television, movie theater, a game console, video and photo editing. You got a store, because you can always, everybody shop on their phone now. You got an investment broker, and the list goes on and on and on. All of that from a cell phone. Man, look, if you'd have told me back in 1978, 1980, 1985, that 1990, that this was going to be possible, I'd have said, yeah, nah. It's crazy where we have evolved technologically. I remember in the 70s, back when you could get on an airplane, number one, you didn't have to go through security. They didn't have all of that metal detectors and all that kind of stuff. And people actually used to smoke on the airplanes back in the day. I'm glad they don't anymore, though. I'm really glad of that. I don't know how they did it then. But people shop online now. Nobody goes to the store anymore. People avoid going to the store. That's just one more of those things. These are all things that have evolved in technology and has changed society in ways that you would think would have made us better. And I really sometimes I'm not sure what's better and what's worse, because I'm a firm believer that to get anything, you got to give something. And I think we've given up an awful lot to get where we are. And I guess the generations coming don't know what it was like to be the way things were versus the way things are going to be and where they are now. And I also firmly believe that we're not promised tomorrow. We don't get tomorrow. We don't get, I'm sorry. I mean, yesterday. Yesterday is gone. You're not going to get yesterday. And if you live in your rearview mirror, it's unfortunate because you will trip over something that you were meant to step up on moving forward. So you gotta, and I say that from experience. Let me break it down like this. When you go through life and you're constantly looking back thinking about what was, you miss what's important and what's coming. I'm one of those people. There are a couple of areas in my life that I have had levels of nostalgia about. We get nostalgic and we think about how things once were, and we go, oh man, I'd be glad when we get back to this or that. I'd be glad when we get back to the old days. We ain't never going back to the old days. Don't get me wrong. There are things about the past that I love. I love the fact that when I was a child, we were able to get out and move around the world. Literally, on our bicycles, we would be gone for hours. Hours and hours. From the time the sun came up to the time the sun went down, we'd be gone, and we didn't have to worry about nobody bothering us, trying to snatch us, human trafficking and all. We ain't have to be bothered with all of that. Not like this. We connected with other people. We talked to other people. We made friends on a personal level. We went and drank out the doggone water hose on the side of the house, and we wasn't worried about nothing. We're not going back to that. Justin Jordan says we have to prepare for war in a time of peace. Absolutely. One of my favorite quotes. Absolutely right. But these are the things that we miss. There was a time I believed that collective stupidity was because of lack of information. Like, people just, when you didn't know something, it's because you just hadn't done the homework, or it's because you just, well, of course it's because you haven't done the homework, but because you just didn't have access to the information. Well, now, I just finished talking about the computers in everybody's pockets. The communication device of a lifetime thus far. With all the information in the world right at your fingertips. And I swear, I think people have gotten dumber. That is the most amazing thing to me. Smartphones, I believe, have contributed greatly to more people's stupidity. And even myself, I'm going to even go and say about myself that it made me think about the times when I remembered people's phone numbers off the top of my head. I remembered when, oh man, call so-and-so. I'll bet. Pick up the phone, doot, 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 and you knew the number. Right now, if you ask me 3 people's phone numbers in my phone, I bet I can't tell you. I bet I can't. So even the technology has made me dumber or lazier. That's not good. One of the things in this country, though, that hasn't changed, and this is the sad part, is the attitude of white privilege. The fact that in 2021, black people still have to fight for the right to vote in this country. Have to actually try as hard as you can to work around all of the obstacles being put in place for the ability to vote in America in 2021. That has not changed. We have been fighting that fight since the Emancipation Proclamation. And we're still fighting that right now. And I think that is the most ridiculous thing in the world. But it shows you, because you have people, and when you talk about systemic racism, they tell you that it doesn't exist. Still fighting for equal justice, equal application of the law, and non-biased police agencies. Well, we know that non-biased police agencies do not exist. People like to say, oh, all the cops are not bad. I've said it before and I'll say this again. All of the good cops have been terminated because they at some point or another have made the mistake of attempting to stop another officer from doing the wrong thing. And the blue wall of silence, that blue line, support the blue, has stepped in and allowed them to be above the law. So if you're silent, you're complicit. So if other officers have stood by and watched while other officers have done wrong, they are equally as guilty for not arresting them and charging them with assault when they beat the hell out of somebody. Policing and police reform haven't changed. Police should never be above the law. Whenever these officers get caught on camera, and I say that only because they get caught on camera, because we know they lie constantly. And my thing is, if you got to lie to make your case, are you really that inhuman? Yes, they are, because they do it all the time. Whenever an officer violates someone's constitutional rights and civil rights, the first thing these departments, oh, we're going to retrain them. You cannot retrain hatred. You cannot retrain racism. You cannot retrain bias. They should not be in uniform. They should not be empowered by the court with the authority to judge, arrest, or challenge anyone in public. They are a public safety hazard, as a matter of fact. Justin Jordan says, would you arrest your brother? Well, here's the thing. Those uniforms do not make them brothers. And of course, it does not make them black. They can take those uniforms off at any time and do the right thing. They are not connected by DNA nor by race. And only because of leaked body camera video do we get to see the truth about the gentleman in Louisiana. We have to stop taking the word of the police because they cannot be trusted. They've proven this time and time again. What good are body cameras when the evidence can be suppressed? Just the same as the camera footage in the case of Andrew Brown in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. That evidence is currently being suppressed. Y'all see, it took 2 years for them to release these videos. And they didn't even release them. Somebody leaked them. They got leaked. Now they're releasing all of the body cameras, right? Let me show y'all something. I just want you to see. This is the attitude of officers. Mr. Ronald Green had to deal with.
I don't know. How was that? Well, this guy was drunk, and I think he was wet. Yeah. And I beat the ever-living fuck out of him, choked him, and everything else trying to get him under control. And we finally got him in handcuffs when a third man got there. And the son of a bitch was still fighting, and we were still wrestling with him, trying to hold him down because he was spitting blood everywhere. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, he just went limp. Damn. Yeah, I thought he was dead. We set him up real quick. He's on the ambulance en route to Glenwood, and I'm hauling ass trying to catch up to him. You think y'all got no body cam?
All right. Now, you see what I'm talking about. That person, in my best opinion, Riri, is operating out of their animal instincts. Only an animal without the ability to think would do something like that to another of their own species. See? Even though we're human, you still have to remember that very few people operate within the confines of their psyche and what they think and calculated, and they do in a calculated way. That's all adrenaline. That's all testosterone. That's all the things that make up a person such as that. That's animal behavior. We're more like animals than we are anything else. Again, you cannot retrain bigotry, hatred, and racism. And those things have been the fabric and the fiber of the very institution they serve in this country, which has supported second-class citizens such as ourselves since its inception, since the very beginning of this country. You got to remember, when the Constitution was written, we were still in chains, y'all. We weren't considered citizens. None of these things that were written had anything to do with free black folks, period. And when we're ignorant of these things, when you're ignorant, period, it sometimes means, not sometimes, it usually means that you're going to have to unlearn as much as you do learn. Because again, like I said, in order to gain something, you actually have to give something up some kind of way. But the first test to any of that is understanding that you are ignorant or that you may be ignorant. Just give yourself the benefit of the doubt and open your mind and your heart to learn more. If more white, bigoted individuals did this, the world would be a different place. If they understood the truth, learned the truth, or cared about the truth. All of these departments that are involved in these types of behaviors, here's what I think should happen. I think the department itself should be held accountable by the federal government. Every time an officer steps out of line like this, I think that it should be a requirement that all local departments forward body cam video and audio to a federal agency. I think that any officer who turns off his body cam should be fired immediately. They cannot be trusted. Mr. Green's case is a prime example of untrustworthy civil servants, people who are supposed to be serving and protecting, but instead they're beating and killing with impunity, with authority to do so. And then the ability to lie in a conspiracy to suppress information and evidence and get away with it. They got away with it for 2 years. The only reason we know about this is because somebody, some good citizen, somebody cared enough to leak the footage. The federal government should hold every last one of these departments accountable. Get these sociopathic psycho cops off the streets of America. They are equally as bad as any criminal. In fact, they are criminals. So, check this out, y'all. I want to talk about isms. You have racism, you have socialism, capitalism, and communism, right? Well, when you break down what this means, let's talk about isms. It's funny because in the street of Chicago, we used to talk about, we're gonna kick the ism. Yeah. But what does ism really mean? Well, it is a distinctive practice created by those in power or a system or philosophy, typically a political ideology and or artistic movement, a distinctive doctrine, cause, or theory, an oppressive and especially discriminatory attitude or belief. Ism. The ism part is the ideology. And I'm bringing this up to say this because I get tired of hearing people say that black people are racist. Some black people are racist. By definition, black people cannot be racist. Let's take racism. A distinctive practice created by those in power. When have black people ever been in power to create a practice in America? A system or philosophy. Who created a system of race? Who created the philosophy of race? It wasn't black folks. Political ideology. Wasn't us. A distinctive doctrine, cause, or theory. An oppressive and especially discriminatory attitude or belief. We didn't create that. By definition, black people don't have the power to be racist. Riri said we did not create racism, they did. Exactly. And so that means guess whose problem racism really is? Ain't got nothing to do with us. Black folks have not installed any systems to control any other groups of people anywhere in America or on the planet for that matter. Racism is an illness. It's a sickness created by a greedy white society. You got to remember now, free labor. That's how they got rid in this country. For some reason, though, white folks don't want to own this. They don't want to own, and I'm not going to say all because I have seen some white folks who do get it, and they definitely understand that they're in a different position. They don't like it, but there's nothing they can do about it. But I appreciate the fact that at least they're not silent about it, like so many others. All who remain silent in the face of their own, who are racist, are equally as guilty. The same as the cops who watch other cops break the law. That makes you just as bad as them. So it's easy to say something else when it's being done. I'm saying this to say that in changes, racism is not in our past. It is our present and currently headed toward our future. Anybody in authority or anyone who is non-black, who sits by idly and quietly while injustice takes place is complicit. The simple task of ignoring these acts make them guilty. Finally, on yesterday, the grand old party, the GOP, the Republicans, decided to speak out against Marjorie Taylor Greene for making the comment involving Nazi Germany, Jews, and the stars that they were made to wear by the Nazis before they were sent to concentration camps, and the wearing of masks because of COVID. And it took 5 days for her colleagues to finally speak up and say that she was dead ass wrong for cracking out a turn like that. But why did it take them 5 days to condemn those words? I think that they got the idea that their constituents had a problem with it. And it amazes me how in this country we have such an affinity for Jews and the Jewish lifestyle. And we send so much money overseas every year to Israel. I've not figured that out yet, but maybe if somebody knows something that I don't, help me out, because I don't understand what's going on there. But anyway, according to, what's this clown's name? That dude in the doggone, in the Congress, the Congress minority leader. Anyway, forget him. I don't need his name. Anyway, he claimed that the tragedy of the Holocaust, he said, was the worst atrocity that America had ever witnessed. The idea that he would say something like that, it infuriates me. And why? 6 million Jews were killed by Hitler in a wartime situation in another country. But here in America, over the period of the Atlantic slave trade from approximately 1526 to 1867, 12.5 million slaves were shipped from Africa, and 10.7 arrived in the Americas. The volume of slaves carried off from Africa reached 30,000 per year in the 1690s. Now that's the beginning of chattel slavery. And 85,000 per year a century later. More than 8 out of 10 Africans forced into the slave trade crossed the Atlantic Ocean between 1700 and 1850. That literally is 150 years of transport. We ain't talking about slavery itself. That's just the transport. But in his mind, the Holocaust was the worst thing that ever happened to America. Kevin McCarthy, that's his name. The worst atrocity to take place in American history, or in history. Not a word about slavery, not a word about the destruction of many, many, many communities throughout America over the centuries that were self-sufficient and run on their own, like Tulsa, Oklahoma, like Rosewood, like those on the list that I read to you earlier. These attitudes, none of it has changed. Slavery was the worst atrocity on this planet. The Holocaust was bad. Nothing to take away there. They were both terrible, but let's not get it twisted. Millions and upon millions of black bodies died during, after the times of slavery. But it just shows you the devaluation of black life in the minds of people like himself. And that goes back to the attitudes of white supremacy. They don't care about the black lives that were lost over all of these centuries, but they care about the 6 million Jews. Not taking nothing away from Jewish people or their tragedies, but it's just too easy for people to forget about the rest of us. And that is the whole problem within itself. And guess what, y'all? That hasn't changed. All this other technology, all these other things going on around us, changing, evolving, growing, But that hasn't changed. Attitudes in policing have not changed. Because let's not forget the origins of the police department. These are your slave catchers that developed into police departments. Think about it. Prior to the end of slavery, there was no such thing as a police department. There were not people running around, policing. These were your slave catchers. Doing the work. And then, you got to remember you had black slave catchers too. As a matter of fact, there is a new series on, I think it's Amazon. It's called The Underground Railroad. There's been a couple, but this one just came out. And in that show, there is a slave catcher who has a young black boy with him who he's like your baby Uncle Ruckus. Your baby, whatever that guy's name, Samuel L. Jackson played in Django. And he was a slave catcher. A kid. But these are the slave catchers that do the work of the oppressor, of the white man. Anytime a police officer pulls you over for no reason, and we know that happens constantly, for no reason, lie and say you got a taillight out. I've seen it happen myself. In fact, I've been pulled over for no reason at all. They run up on you, start asking you questions. Let me see your license. That's the equivalent of a cop running up on you saying, let me see your papers. What you doing out here on this road? You can't be out here walking around. Where's your papers? When they get that call, it's a suspicious person. Suspicious. Let me see your papers, boy. You don't belong around here. There was a video out not too long ago where a white guy, I guess he was in the military, sat up there and told that black boy, that's how they do, told that young man, you don't belong around here. I've never seen you around here. Show me your papers. That's what he might as well have said. It's the same thing. Your black skin makes you a threat. Your black skin makes you a criminal. Your black skin makes you suspicious. It's the equivalent of the police in the early 1900s. They asked the same questions. This is after slavery, right? Of a black man walking down the street. Did y'all know that it was illegal for a black man to really literally walk down the street after a certain time of day minding his own business? They had a thing called black codes back then. This was before Jim Crow. And black codes in many states dictated that if you didn't have your papers, basically, from your employer, meaning 9 times out of 10, because you were limited, the black codes limited the jobs that you could do as a black person. Here's why. Let's say, for example, you were a blacksmith on a plantation during slavery and you were freed. Well, guess what? You're probably going to be one of the best blacksmiths around. Why? Because you had to do it day in and day out. You had to do it right, and you had to do it for free. And if you didn't, you'd probably get your ass whooped. So guess what? You was a pretty damn good blacksmith. But guess what? Now you're free. And you know how, with skills, to make a living. But guess what? If you got to be in the same workforce as a white person who may not have your skills, or who may resent the fact that you do something better than them, they don't want you working with them. They don't want you working around them. They don't even want you doing the work. Why? Because they don't want to compete. It goes back to what we talked about earlier in the show, the competition in the animal kingdom. They don't want to compete because they may lose. The idea of a white man losing to a black man is devastating. They can't have that. So they have to keep you down. They have to keep you out of the way. They made black codes. Black codes said that if you were walking down the street minding your own business, this is just one of them now, there's a lot, but this one in particular, walking down the street minding your own business, sheriff, constable, whatever he was at the time, roll up, hey, boy, where you going? Just like now, where you headed? Where you been? Let me see your papers. Let me see your driver's license. Let me see some ID. Let me see your papers. That's slave catcher all day. He won't see your papers. So now, where's your employment paper? Oh, you don't work for nobody and you just walking around out here? Oh, you a vagrant. Huh. Yep. Guess what? Vagrancy is against the law. So now I'm about to lock you up. So they go to jail and they get hit with a $50 fine. Do you know how much $50 was back in 1903? 1900 and anything? Do you know that was a lot of money? A whole lot of money. And guess what? He ain't working. 9 times out of 10, he ain't got $50 in his pocket. He can't make bond. Well, now you got to go to jail. So you go to jail. And just so happened that some plantation owner comes along and he says, yeah, so what you got over here? Well, we got this boy here. He a criminal. See, he got criminalized. He ain't a criminal, not by definition, but he got criminalized because of his color of his skin, because he was walking down the street minding his own business. Now, all of a sudden, he's a criminal. So guess what? Well, I'm going to pay his fine, $50. You get a policeman $50, but now you got to pay that man back. In order for you to pay him back, you got to go and work on his plantation until you work off this $50. How long is it going to take you to work off the $50? A couple of years. So guess what? Now you back in slavery. Now you may say, that's not legal. They can't do that. 13th Amendment. Check it for yourself. It dictates that slavery is abolished except for people who are or have been incarcerated. See, remember why the Constitution was written and how it was written. So now, if we can keep you in slavery, this is what we're going to do. So now all we got to do is consistently violate y'all, and we got you back working for free. Right now, today, in society, you got a young black man running around here that can get violated for trespassing. If you get the right kind of trespassing, now you got a felony. You have all kinds of little small BS laws on the books that will allow young black men to get violated, which then therefore removes them of several of their rights. They may not have to go and work for free, although I do know of a bunch of people in the penitentiary who are working for a few dollars a day. I know someone personally who learned how to actually make eyeglasses in the penitentiary. And sadly, after leaving the penitentiary and knowing how to do this job, because he did it for years, he was locked up, no company dealing with eyeglasses would hire him. See the game? It's called the prison industrial complex. It's set up for our failure, which is the same reason why, no matter the fact that the crime rate within the black and white communities are damn near parallel, the majority prisoners in America are people of color, because our communities are over-policed by people who don't even live in our communities, who will violate you just because their ego got deflated, just because you said something that they felt was disrespectful. Now they hit you in the mouth and tell you stop resisting, break your arm, put handcuffs on you, tase you, beat you half to death or to death, and walk away like nothing happened. Slave catchers. If they're lucky enough to get you a conviction for resisting arrest, which means that they have now assault on a police officer, which is a felony. Now you have a criminal record and everything else is downhill from there. See how that works? It's crazy. But this is America. That has not changed. Why is that provision even still in the 13th Amendment? It should be removed. But it won't be because it doesn't affect anybody white. It only affects black people. Now, they will single out a white if he's $2, but that only affects us. It's still in the Constitution for the same reason that Asians and gays have protection under the law and black folks don't. Ronald Greene in Louisiana, it took them 2 whole years to expose these officers. It's a police state. And these guys literally, y'all heard the tape when I just played it. They literally celebrated beating this man to death and talked about they hope he don't have AIDS while they wash his blood off of their hands. They still got blood on their hands. That man is dead, and they covered it up. Chickens are coming home to roost. And funny thing is that one of them cops is dead. You know, some people, they fetishize state-sanctioned violence because that's what this is. Just like the same people who thought that that woman running over those protesters was a good idea. Just like the guy who ran over the protesters in North Carolina some years ago. Just like the governor down in Florida who made the law or put the law on the books that it's okay to run over protesters. Fetishize police and state-sanctioned violence. Crazy where we headed. These cop worshipers, they can do no wrong. Now, yeah, that cop, he was killed in a single car accident, not in a crash where he ran into somebody else. It was a single car accident, and it is suspected that it was suicide because he knew he was about to get fired. That he knew that was coming. And so, if he did it that way, then at least his family would get his pension, I guess, and he wouldn't be in his life insurance because, you know, if you kill yourself and they know you killed yourself, you lose everything for the most part. But the sad part is that the people who love to weaponize the police, these are the same people who love to hate. These are the same people who will find a reason why Ronald Greene deserved to die on the side of the road being beat by the police officers who lied and covered it all up and turned off, well, a couple of them turned off their body cams. One of them didn't, and that's why they got all this information. Now that they've decided to finally release the rest of them because they already know they're caught. These people will make up a reason, though, regardless of what them officers said. They will find a reason to say that Ronald Greene is a criminal. He's a hardened criminal, and he deserved everything he got. He ran, so we had to kill him. See, that's police ego. That's sociopathic behavior. That's psychosis. When your ego is so big, somebody ran from you and you couldn't catch him, I'm going to kill him. And that's what they did. They beat that man to death. Choked him, admittedly, on camera. Yeah, he forgot his body cam was on. Hurried up and cut that off when he was on that phone. He done ran his mouth. Too late. It's on there now, baby. You got to turn that in. Caught up. Then his superiors, all the way up to the governor, covered it up, pretended like it didn't happen. Lied to that man's mother and told her that his car hit a tree. Car was undamaged in the front, and that's what killed him. Yet, we're supposed to trust the police. Yeah, okay. by the thinking that they have in regard to making it justifiable for him to die. If we look hard enough in anybody's background, we can find some reasons to justify harming them. But that's not our place. And it definitely is not the place of these police officers to take it upon themselves to be judge, jury, and executioner, which they did. They murdered that man in cold blood. One of them is already dead. So, Trooper York, which was one of the main ones, he only got a 50-hour suspension. And he was suspended pending federal investigation. I think there's a federal investigation still going on or about to be going on. Hollingsworth is the one that died in a car crash, single car accident. He knew the jig was up. Then there's one more named DeMoss, which I haven't seen anything on him yet. But the problem is this: as black people in America, we sit down, we die. We die. If we stand up, we die. We resist, of course we die. We comply. It's not good enough. You got to die. Stand still. You're going to die. Run. Oh, we're going to shoot you in the back. You got to die. Stay quiet. It's just what we want. Kill them. Speak up. Assassinate them. Damned if we do, damned if we don't. It's a hell of a thing. But guess what? Nothing has changed. Same way it's always been. We're going to put a man on the moon. We even got a rocket to Mars. We got electric cars. We got smartphones. We got all kinds of technology. But we still don't have our dignity. We still don't have equal justice. We're still dehumanized. We still have to fight for the right to vote, to be considered full human beings in the Constitution. We still got to fight for all these things while we ride around in our Tesla, in our solar house, with our cell phones, and all this wonderful technology that we enjoy today. The minute we protest our own slaughter, we become criminalized. The minute we stand up and say we're not going to take it anymore, white folks get angry. They get mad. Oh, why are they protesting? What are they doing now? Well, guess what? If you don't want to be bothered with it, turn the TV off. Mind your business. Although silence is complicity, what you mad about? Are you mad because you're scared? Is there a fear that one day the tables may turn and you may get treated the way that you try to ignore or the way that you treat others? Yeah. The chickens always come home to roost. We fight for our freedoms, and we wrong. But let the Jewish folks complain like they did on Marjorie Taylor Greene. Oh, hell gonna break loose. All you gotta do is look at what's happening in the Congress right now as we speak. Them Jewish folks say, look here, we ain't having it. And even her own people had to stand up like, yeah, that was repulsive. Yeah, she can't say that. Yeah, no. It should be, if anybody should get that kind of respect, it should be us. By now. Say something about them and see how angry they get. Mention the Holocaust, you're going to have a fight on your hands. To this day, and I've heard this myself. In fact, I've had this posed to me before. Anytime I complain or make a stink or something comes up and white folks don't like what you're saying. There's two go-to things they're going to say. One of them going to be nigga. The other one going to be get a job. Because of what we talked about earlier, paired associate learning. They think that it's an insult to tell somebody who probably makes more money than them to get a job. Because in their mind, in their paired associate learning, they learned that black people don't work. Black people are all on welfare. Black people are always looking for a handout. Black people are always begging. Paired associate learning. They believe that in their own mind. They have to believe that in order for them to continue to believe that they have a superior position in their existence. That's kind of like a man walking around talking about, guess what? I got a big old. Well, guess what? If it was that big, you wouldn't be talking about it because you wouldn't have to. See, same insecurity. They got to let you know, oh, you need to get a job. Really? Maybe you're the one that's unemployed. Don't project your stuff on me. That's all I'm saying. Get a job. You see it on social media all the time. How do they have time to protest? They need to get a job. Well, according to them, I guess they figure you're supposed to be in the field picking cotton instead of trying to get what was promised to you by our Constitution. Nope, you need to get out there and tote that bale, pick that cotton. See, that's where their mindset is. Hasn't changed. Still the same. A lot of things change. Not that. They also don't believe that the Constitution applied to black people. So there's no reason for black people to be complaining. There's no reason for us to complain or to protest because it doesn't apply to us in their mind. Paired associate learning. They call that a perceived white supremacy. They make attempts to shame black people into foregoing their own well-being. I want you to give up your well-being to satisfy my sensibilities about who I think you are. What was one of the first things I said in this show? We are not what others have limited us to be. We are not the limitations others put on us. To be honest with you, I think that successful black folks, to me, they're not arrogant enough. Black folks with money and with success and with fame and prosperity should be far more arrogant than they are. I think we tend to dumb ourselves down in order to make them more comfortable. Kind of like how black folks who go around straightening their hair. Like how Paul Mooney used to say, if it's nappy, white folks ain't happy. Yeah. There's no shame in success and hard work, which many of us have done and have achieved. No more hiding success to make them comfortable. They don't deserve that comfort. And now, even though we know it will anger them to violence, which it always does. They're a very violent group of people. They always talk about black folks being violent, but I don't recall seeing anybody black burning down whole towns and murdering kids and women. Anybody for that matter, in order to keep a group of people beneath them, because they can't stand to see the success coming out of those cities. See, now the same thing is done. It's just done a little differently. It's done economically. Economic sanctions is what you could call it. No shame in success, y'all. But it hasn't changed. All of that is time past. and a better future is coming. The assumption that black people are broke and all live in the projects, that's their problem. Same as racism, what we just talked about, the isms. That's their problem if that's what they believe. That's not our problem. That's their problem. We need to focus inward on one another and continue doing what we do. Don't worry about what they're doing. And they definitely don't need to worry about what we're doing. The stereotypes that they hold, those belong to them, not us. You never have to answer to anything that doesn't apply to you. Paired associate learning. In their mind, you're nothing. They need that in order for them to survive. Without it, they don't know who they are. These people went out of their way to put out any flame of prosperity in black communities across America. Now, you may think, well, he's talking about something that happened 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 60, 70 years ago. Let me tell you why it matters. Let me just break it down for you. A generation, if you think about this, like right now, the baby boomers are our elders. The group before the baby boomers have mostly died off already. My grandfather will be 97 on his birthday in September. My mother, who is a baby boomer, is one of the people who will benefit from the choices, decisions, and built up economic status of my grandparents. The wealth that my mother accumulates in whatever form will benefit me in her passing. Understand this. What we're talking about right now, that's 3 generations. One generation began in the 1920s. Wait a minute. Not yet. Well, no. Yeah. In the 1920s. My grandfather was born in the 1920s. Yeah. So if you think about it, from 1920s to here we are, 2021, in 3 more years, my grandfather will make 100. 3 generations now. Now just imagine if my grandfather was one of the unfortunate people to lose everything during the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre, or his family lost everything. What if my grandfather was one of the people who lost during several other massacres that took place in America after that? And he lost his land. His land was basically stolen from him. He was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they burned his home to the ground and murdered his family. And because all of the paperwork and information that they possessed, birth certificates, identification, all of the pertinent documents that explain to the government, to the world who you are, burned in your house. And you go to the bank to retrieve your funds to rebuild your home because you got it like that. And they tell you, no, you can't have no money because we don't know who you are. We don't know you. The banks stole money from the residents of Tulsa, Oklahoma. The insurance companies did not pay a damn dime to nobody to rebuild their properties. And to top it all off, not one white person who murdered, destroyed, maimed anyone in Tulsa, Oklahoma, not one of them was arrested charged, or prosecuted for any of that injustice. And then they wonder why black folks keep talking about reparations. I said all of that to say this. That generational wealth that got wiped out, wiped the slate clean, gone, just like that. So let's say that was my grandfather. Then that means my mother would have had to start from the very bottom floor to build anything up for me. So, in the meantime, white families whose grandparents in the 1920s were not in slavery, who have already built up a level of wealth, have the benefit of that generational wealth moving forward all the way into 2021 today. See, I'm just showing you that 1920 ain't that far behind us. My grandfather is still here. That's still only 2 generations away from me. 1 generation away from me. See? So what I'm saying is that over this period of time in the black community, how much generational wealth had been destroyed in these massacres? How much legacy got lost in these massacres? How much dignity that you can't replace got destroyed in these massacres? And here we are in 2021. Now, I'm 55. 50 years is a lifetime. And I've seen change, a lot of change, but this hasn't changed. Yes, some of us made it through the cracks, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say my grandfather was probably one of them. But the fact is, there are those who have been hell-bent on wiping out anything that would give the next generation the power to succeed. They have destroyed many black cultural centers. Many. All that to make us have to depend again on them. And all supported and backed up by the laws created in the United States. The government laws that allowed all this to take place. Y'all got to remember, the law is a funny thing. They can make a law tomorrow to say everybody black got to go to jail. And you think voting ain't a good idea? Yeesh. Yep, they did a job on Tulsa, among other places. Murder, arson, whole lot of other crimes, all unchecked and systematically covered up. I believe they're doing a special on CNN or the History Channel or something in the next week where they're going to talk about in detail because there was a recent hearing in Congress where a survivor of that event testified. I'll be really interested in seeing that. Now, the last segment of this show, y'all, this came up today and it prompted me to begin this dialogue, and I want you all to kind of, I don't know, I would say participate, but I don't know. Here's the deal. Here's the question. Do we need, and y'all can show me by hearts and thumbs, do we need black leadership in America? Is that a thing? Show me hearts and show me thumbs. Hearts if you think we need it, thumbs if you don't think we need it. Do we need leadership in the black community in America today? I question the formula that we've been working under so far. I think it worked during a period of time. I don't know anymore. I wonder sometimes if the systems that we operate under currently are a good thing. I think they had their period of effectiveness, but now I struggle with it only because I feel like during the time where we glorified black leaders, we didn't know any better. I'm going to tell you what I mean. To me, black leadership in America reminds me of a part in slavery. And what I mean by that is during slavery, a plantation would do something like put an individual on a pedestal, so to speak, right? They would, wait a minute, they would, y'all had to excuse me 1 second. I gotta ban somebody from this channel right here because they are doing the wrong thing. During slavery, a plantation owner would take an individual and teach him some stuff about the Bible and put him on a sort of pedestal in the pulpit, if you will, to speak to the other slaves and explain religion or the Bible to them. Now, I feel like the leadership that we have is reminiscent of that master putting someone out front to say that this is the person that I want y'all to listen to. In the media, we have an issue where they choose who they want to get information from, be it good or bad. If it's Fox News, they'll go find somebody like that chick, Owens. And if it's another station, it's, they'll find somebody that'll speak pro or con. And it's easy to find black folks on either side. But the problem is that when we start talking about black leadership, even though many of our black leaders mean well, the question for me is that as long as we continue with the ideology, the ism of needing leadership, we will not get far. And I say that only because I realize that we are all leaders. We all have our gifts, we all have our place, and we all have the things that we can do to make it all better for all of us. We don't require one individual to get up and speak for us. We can all speak for ourselves. Do we really need someone to speak and say and talk about what our needs are as a people? I think that if we worked harder toward doing our thing individually, we could come together on other levels, unify resources, and create far more as a collective than we can with one individual spokesperson or two individual spokespeople or whatever the case may be. These slave owners would sit and make and have these individuals teach about obedience in the Bible, talk about, obey your master and that sort of thing. And we followed along. And if you think about it, you realize that the church has been at the forefront of every so-called civil rights movement involvement in our history since we've been free. It's always been about the church. So we use the institution that was provided to us by a person who did not mean us any good to further our agenda within the confines of a society that had no intention of ever giving us justice or freedom. Now, y'all forgive me if that sounds, a little pessimistic. I apologize, but I mean, when you start to really weigh it out and think about the origins and where we are and how these things have not changed, you have to ask yourself, is that the right route that we're headed down? Why can't we get simple legislation passed that protects us in society? Why can't we get reparations for all of the hard and free work that we did for centuries? but everybody else can. Even the slave owners got reparations when they lost their slaves after the Civil War. They were paid for the slaves they lost by the federal government. But the slaves themselves, let them go. I'm just trying to understand why. Another curious thing, and it just shows you the division within the community. We follow the black church. And anytime anybody historically did anything outside of the black church, they were usually frowned upon. Now, I said that to say, let's take the Nation of Islam, for example. Now we're talking about the difference between Christianity and Islamic belief. There are people within the Christian faith who frown upon, as an example, Minister Farrakhan. They will throw the baby out with the bathwater. Here's what I mean. Here's a man who is probably, if not absolutely, one of the greatest theologians within our society in this lifetime. People don't want to hear what he has to say because the truth is extremely painful. Now, I don't consider myself a Christian, nor do I consider myself a person in Islamic faith. But I know truth when I see it. That truth that that man spits offends so many people, particularly those in the Jewish community. The fact that he is capable of using their doctrine to show issues within themselves that they point out about others, they get angered. The first thing out of their mouth, he's an anti-Semite. It's anti-Semitism. And they say all sorts of other things. I have heard people, in fact, there's a particular very prominent Christian pastor, a woman, very, very famous, very popular pastor. And I'll never forget, I sat in on a forum where a minister was speaking along with several other clergy members. And like he does, he brought the house down. But one of the things that he pointed out that I thought was incredibly important was that preachers, he said, you got to stop preaching and start teaching. His presentation was, how can you say, my cup overflow from reality and truth that he was speaking. People don't like him because of the things that he says, but one thing that he doesn't do is lie, because everything that he says is verifiable. Well, most of it. Point being, you can dislike him, but I would challenge anybody to sit in front of him and debate him. The reason the people from the Jewish community and most Christians don't want to debate him is because they know they can't. He has offered on many occasions to sit with anyone who refutes or says anything he says is wrong and deal with it. They won't. See, that's fear. This particular pastor that I'm talking about, after he did this, brought down the house in this particular event, speaking about the betterment and seeking of justice and freedoms for black people. That was on a Saturday. That Sunday, that same pastor who shared the stage with him, got up on that microphone and talked about him like a dog. See, this is why we struggle. Not only was it unnecessary, it just shows you how indoctrinated and brainwashed so many of us are. Forget the fact that here's a man who literally changes people's lives, who literally takes men who have been incarcerated, men who were on their way down a rabbit hole, and turn them into men, turn them into suit-wearing, respectable, respectful men. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're angels. I'm saying they're human. But I'm also saying that they take on their responsibilities. They become men for the most part. Far more than this particular female pastor has ever done for any black men. I digress. But my point is, everything that we do in the community is so rooted in religion, in our churches, that I think that when we talk about leadership, we should start looking outward. It's kind of like how we watch our kids grow up, and you got parents who literally, oh, I want my son to be a basketball player. I want my son to be a football player. I want my son. And it's always the typical run-of-the-mill, oh, I'm a rapper. Look, stop. We got some rocket scientists out here. We got some forensic pathologists out here that need to focus on that, not this other stuff, not the typical run-of-the-mill way we do things. We are not monolithic. We have the ability to expand and spread and do so much more in the world. But we got to see it within ourselves before anybody else will. We got to expand and broaden our thinking. We have to step out and away from the typical and everyday mundane ideas of what we believe will make us successful. Because that's the reason for people saying that, well, I want to be a ball player, I want to do this, I want to be a singer. You do that because you think that's your only route to success. And you know that some of the individuals who are successful musically or in sports are not maybe the smartest people in the world. It's kind of like, to me, the equivalent of the chick who gets on TikTok and show her titties and shake her ass and got 10,000 followers. Yeah, okay. I get that. But at the same time, how much greater could an individual who gets the right guidance be? We got so much talent and so many smart people among us. And it shows on a lot of occasions, but man, just imagine without the distractions where some of our children could be and could go. How the world can actually change for black people. How we can get reform, get dignity, get the laws that we need. Where's all my lawyers at? Or where's all my young? I used to tell my kids all the time when they were coming up, y'all are the future. Y'all are the ones that's supposed to be out there in them streets making a difference. Our time has passed. In the 60s, guess who made all them changes? Do y'all realize that Fred Hampton was only 20 or 21 when they killed him? Do you know how much work that man put in before they murdered him, assassinated him? The youth have always been the ones that got it in. Dr. King was young. Malcolm X, young. All these cats was young. And they put in the work. But see, we as parents have to uplift our children to make them understand their true greatness. Unfortunately, if many of us don't understand how great we are, see, this goes back to legacy and generational wealth. Generational wealth does not only apply to the financial side. It also applies to the psychological, to the educational. You got to get him all of that to be stronger, better, faster, and smarter. But we have to strengthen ourselves to make that happen. See, I get tired of the media telling us who our black leaders are. Oh, well, we spoke to Reverend Sharpton. And don't get me wrong, and I'm not taking anything away from Reverend Sharpton or any of the other people who stand up every single day and put in more work before most people wake up to get things done than a whole lot of folks. I'm not taking nothing from them. In fact, I envy them. I don't say I envy them. I admire them because they are doing something that I know I would struggle at. Because it don't take, I'm one of them people, look, them people get to talk about, oh, we don't need you. I'd be like, oh, I bet I'm gone. Not Reverend Sharpton. He'd be like, yeah, okay, whatever, man, go sit down. And he keep on doing what he's doing. And he does it because it benefits our community. People don't realize that when that man stands up and says something is wrong somewhere, the media pays attention. Why? Because they think they're getting ready to get a circus. Cool, whatever. But at the end of the day, if he can bring attention to a situation, an atrocity that's taking place that nobody else was paying attention to until he showed up, then daggone it, show up. And you got those, oh, he don't do nothing for free. Everything he want. Listen, let me explain something to you. Airfare ain't free. Lawyers ain't free. You go to work for free. You do your job for free. And he shouldn't have to either. You damn right there's money involved. Some kind of way they making it work. Now, talking about he doing it for the money and the publicity. Well, where the money coming from? Since you're so smart, tell me who's paying him to do this. Them families ain't got no money to be paying them. You know, doggone, half of them can't even make bail. So at the end of the day, we need the Reverend Sharptons of the world, whether you like them or dislike them or whatever. Without them, whole lot of cases, whole lot of atrocities, whole lot of police beatings and so on would get no attention and no airtime whatsoever. And these people will go free in this police state of beating the hell out of somebody black and leaving them to die unchecked. Do not get it twisted. We need them. We need to donate to them and every damn thing else. National Action Network, in case you need to know what it is. That's what it's called, National Action Network. They make things, and they got a network all over the entire country. If something happened in your area and it's bad, they'll send somebody to see you from your local chapter. And you do have a local chapter, in case you didn't know. So I support Reverend Sharpton. I support Minister Farrakhan. Now, these are people that they call our leaders. But we all have to lead in our own right. I'd like to believe that me doing this show, even though, like I told y'all before, sometimes I feel guilty. I feel like I'm not doing enough. But if I can provide the information and give you some food for thought that'll help you be better and understand more clear what we need to be doing and how we need to get it done and the way we need to approach it and how we should think about it, then I've done my part. If I don't reach nothing but one person, some days I have a lot of people on here, some days I don't have nobody on here. I don't give a damn. At the end of the day, if I'm able to reach one, then I've done well. Yes, Riri, National Action Network, that's it. So I'm going to do, as long as I can, I'm going to do my part. We have thousands and thousands of capable black folks that are capable of doing their part as well. And it don't always all have to look the same. It can make a tremendous difference in this community. And I say the black community. Our ideology, our isms have to be switched up. I was thinking, I watch all of these young women and other people who go on TikTok and these other places, and they become what they call influencers. They become famous, internet famous, I guess you would call it. And I wondered to myself, and it's usually the chicks with something tight on or nothing on, and they shaking their booty and showing off their breasts and, going on and talking about nonsense. Just imagine if we had the same amount of influencers that were educators, people in professions, people who had information and were providing it and could get the same type of airplay. But going back to our animal instincts, we tend to love debauchery just a little bit more. We want to have fun. All I'm saying is if they're going to use these platforms for BS, they can also use these platforms for good things. But I digress again because I have been told by someone very close to me that you can't save these people. You can't. You got to save yourself. As much as I know that that's true, I cannot and I will not simply stick to that. Although I do know, and I've said I'm a pessimist, pessimism is a self-fulfilling prophecy. So we have to be very, very careful with that because I don't want it to become a thing that I one day say, I'm done, I've had enough, the show is over, time is up, and I'm no longer interested in trying to save people who don't want to be saved. I am about to write this next book, though, y'all, and get it out here. And for those of you who don't have my first book, don't forget to get your copy. Ooh, damn. Don't forget to get your copy of The Black Factor. And you can get that at my website, bmforbes.com. And we're going to get this next book out here because I think the next one is going to be 10 times better than my first one. You know, the first one was I had to figure out a bunch of stuff, and it's all self-published. I did everything myself, everything from the cover. The only thing I didn't actually do is physically print and bind the book. Everything else I did myself. It was work. It was a challenge. It was something that I'm glad I did, and I would never look back from it. I look forward to doing it again. And I encourage anyone else who has a story, who has information that wants to publish a book, a manuscript, an idea, a movie, whatever, please do it. And don't wait till tomorrow. Start tonight. Begin to put your legacy on paper. See, one good thing, you know, I had a friend tell me one day when my my photo print first came out called Choices. If you all haven't seen that, you can Google it. It'll pop right up. Brian Forbes Choices. But he told me when that thing first came out, he said, you do realize now that you here forever. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, when you produce a piece of artwork like this that people love and it's a hit and it has mainstream viability, he said, even after you die, you're still here. And I thought that was an interesting concept. So then it got me to thinking, if that's the case, so then I guess he has a valid point because when I die, my books will still be here. When I die, there'll be people still walking around wearing my one-off jewelry, pieces that I've created for them. And it just made me want to do more in that way. Like, you know, I don't want to be immortal. In fact, I'll be honest, I don't know how far I would want to go in terms of being alive. And I mean that only in the regard that I like being self-sufficient. I like to be able to take care of myself, and quality of life is very important to me. And at what point do we become dependent on others to the degree that we need them to take care of us? You know, that saying that goes twice a baby. So when I do leave here, when my time comes, I do intend to have a legacy of my children being strong, smart, and resourceful in the world. And I intend to leave a body of work that others can say, oh, I got one of those. Or I wished I had got one before he died. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have kept y'all long enough, and I have had a fantastic time. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and hanging out with me. It's been a long night. I had a lot to say. I wanted to get it all out the way because, you know, we only doing this one night a week now for now. We may step it back up in the future, but in the meantime, this is where we are. So I want to thank everybody for coming and hanging with me and kicking it and listening to my rants and my raves. And hopefully there was some knowledge passed and some things that may have benefited you. I want to thank you all. I want everybody to have yourselves a wonderful evening, and I'm going to go and find me something good to eat. Lisa Juarez, thank you so much. She said, good night. Thank you, Brian, for making our minds sharper and realize what is going on out there. God bless you. Thank you very much, Lisa. I appreciate you. My cousin, Martha Williams, great show. Good night. Thank you, Martha, and good night to you, dear. And I promise you, when I get back in town, I'm going to come see you. Well, you know, with COVID and everything, we had to kind of keep it neat. But I'm going to come by there when I get back in town, which will be very, very soon. Ladies and gentlemen, have yourselves a wonderful evening. Good night. Good night. Love.